We're now going to look at the problem 2/6 minus 1/5. Now, when we add and subtract fractions with different denominators or different bottom numbers, we first have to find a common denominator by finding the LCM, or least common multiple, of the denominators. So my denominators here are 6 and 5. So I'm going to write out 6 and 5. And to find the LCM, we just skip count until we find a common multiple. So we have 6, 12, 18, 24, 30. Now I'm going to stop there because I know that 5 is going to eventually get to 30. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. So my LCM, or least common multiple, is 30. So now what we're going to do is we're going to rewrite our fractions with our new denominator of 30. So the first fraction we've been given is 2/6. And we're subtracting 1/5. And we're going to create equivalent fractions here, so they're the same value, they just have a different denominator now. So it's going to be equal to something out of 30 and then something out of 30. So let's look at 2/6. And I'm going to think to myself, 6 times what gives me 30? And the answer is 5. 6 times 5 is 30. Whatever I do to the bottom, I must do to the top. 2 times 5 is 10. Now I'm going to do the same thing for this fraction. 5 times what is 30? Times 6. So if I multiplied by 6 on the bottom, I'm going to do it on the top. 1 times 6 is 6. So now I've created two equivalent fractions to the original fractions, but now they both have a denominator of 30. And we're going to be subtracting. 10 minus 6 is 4. And our denominator always stays the same. We never subtract or add that, so we're still over 30. So our answer is 4/30. But if you look over here at our choices, I don't see that, because 4/30 is not in simplest form. So what we're going to have to do is break it down, reduce, or simplify our fraction. So here's where that Venn diagram that we saw for GCF earlier is going to come into play. So our answer was 4/30. So I'm going to put 4 and 30 on our Venn diagram. And I'm going to list the factors of 4 and the factors of 30. So we have 1 times 4 and 2 times 2. Over here for 30, we have 1 times 30, 2 times 15, 3 times 10. Can't use 4, but I can use 5 times 6. My next number would be 6, but we already have that, so we're done. The numbers that they share or have in common are 1 and 2. They don't share any other factors. So now we're going to find the greatest common factor, so the biggest one that they share, and that would be 2. So now I'm going to use this number to simplify or break down this fraction because we want to have it in the simplest form. So my GCF, or greatest common factor, is 2. So we are going to divide by 2 on the top and on the bottom. And we're going to have a brand new equivalent fraction. 4 divided by 2 is 2. 30 divided by 2 is 15. And if you didn't know that, you could just go back here and look at your Venn diagram. You have 30, you have 2, and then you have a 15, so it's like a fact family here. 30 divided by 2 is 15, because 15 times 2 is 30. So now that you have 2/15, that is your answer in simplest form. So go back over here, and we see that that is a choice, 2/15. We're going to look at one more example of how to add or subtract fractions with unlike denominators. And now in this case we're adding because it says what is the sum of 1/4 and 5/12, and the sum is the answer when you add. So since we have different denominators, we have to find a common denominator. We have 4 and we have 12. So I'm going to list the multiples of 4 and the multiples of 12 until I find a common denominator, or the LCM, least common multiple. 4, 8, 12. And I'm going to stop right there because 12 is the first multiple of 12, which means 12 is going to be our LCM. So we're going to now rewrite those fractions. And it's going to equal something over 12 now. But I'm going to stop here because this one is already out of 12, which means I don't need to rewrite it. I only need to rewrite this fraction. And I'm going to think, what times 4 will give me 12? And the answer is 3. 4 times 3 equals 12. Whatever I do on the bottom, I must do on the top. If I did times 3 down here, I must do it up here. 1 times 3 is 3. So now I have 3/12 plus 5/12. 3 plus 5 is 8 over 12. Now I don't see 8/12 over here, but I know that we did everything right, which means I need to simplify my fraction, which means we're really just breaking it down. So I'm going to draw our Venn diagram here. And my numbers and my answer are 8 and 12. So I'm going to list the factors of 8. 1 times 8, 2 times 4, sorry. And then we have 12. 1 times 12, 2 times 6, 3 times 4. And now we're going to look at the ones that they share or have in common. They share a 1. They share a 2. And they share a 4. Now, what is my greatest common factor, or GCF, that I'm going to use to simplify my fraction? The GCF is 4. So now I'm going to go back to my answer, 8/12, and I'm going to divide it by 4 on the numerator and the denominator. So 8 divided by 4 and 12 divided by 4 to get our simplified fraction. 8 divided by 4 is 2, and you could just look over here, 8, 4, 2. 12 divided by 4 is 3. So now 2/3 is our simplified answer. In simplest form, 8/12 is 2/3, and I do see that answer.